Okay, let's go through a really short act or scene here, Act 3, Scene 3, and it states that it's another part of the island. So we've got the part of the island with Gonzalo, Alonso, Sebastian, Antonio, Adrian, Francisco, and some of these other lesser lords. We've got Prospero and his part of the island with Miranda and Ferdinand and the sort of headquarters for all of his machinations. We've got Trinculo and Stefano with Caliban on another part of the island. And so I think that covers all the different parties. And all of these different parties are starting to come closer to a resolution and emerging. And this is exactly what Prospero wants. In some ways, this scene is a little bit of a climax because it's where Prospero, through the use of his powers and Ariel's magic, he is able to call out Antonio formally. And so let's see how that happens. Apparently, they're all quite tired from slogging around the island. Gonzalo says, "My bones ache. Here's a maze trod indeed through forthrights and meanders," as in they've been just searching around, getting lost probably. He says, "By your patience I needs must rest me. Old Lord, I cannot blame thee, who am myself attached with weariness." So, okay, so they're tired. Sit down to rest. And then up comes the aside, the side plot between Antonio and Sebastian, saying they're vulnerable, okay, they're out of hope. The next advantage will we take thoroughly. Let it be tonight, for now they are oppressed with travel. They will not, nor cannot use such vigilance as when they are fresh. I say tonight, no more, as in Prospero will be no more tonight. Okay, so that's a pretty good plan, right? Because everyone's really tired. They're going to be heavy asleep. It'll be easy to get this murder done. Okay, this is when we hear some solemn and strange music. And I'm going to play some music almost contemporary with this time period that might give you a sense of what the audience may have heard. Okay, just to give you a little taste of the kind of music that might have been heard back then. Very simple but formulaic, organized. This would have been some music people would have danced to at the fancy parties with the nobles. Harpsichords, strings, maybe some woodwinds. It's quite basic. Slow, stately. Okay, so that gives you a little idea of what kind of music might have been heard as these invisible shapes enter. Shapes we know to be sort of like ghost-like, spirit-like beings. And it's startling for the party, but Gonzalo quickly points out, look, they're being polite. They're welcoming us. They're setting this table. They have kind manners, more so than most people. And then Prospero, who's hidden and invisible, okay, another more dramatic irony here in that nobody else sees Prospero except the audience. And he says, "Yep, Gonzalo's right. You are with several jerks in your party, Antonio and Sebastian, having overthrown Prospero and also currently plotting to kill Alonso." So, Prospero's sort of affirming like Gonzalo's like this good guy, and he understands human nature. And anyway, Alonso is a little bit suspicious, and so Alonso can't quite understand them. This is an interesting bit of verse here where he says, "I cannot too much muse such shapes." Like, I don't understand what these things are. They gesture, and the sound, it creates some kind of expression. Although they want the use of tongue, as in they can't talk, um, a kind of excellent dumb discourse. So he's picking up on some communication that's happening without words. So there's a sense that they're entranced by this scene that's unfolding. Okay, so Prospero notes that the shapes having set the table, they depart. Francisco says they vanished strangely. And Sebastian, sort of greedy-like, says, no matter, since they have left their vines behind, for we have stomachs. Will it please you taste of what is here? And Alonso says, not I. And then Gonzalo says, faith, sir, you need not fear. When we were boys, who would believe that there were mountaineers dew-lapped like bulls, whose throats had hanging at 'em wallets of flesh? So he's saying, like, there's lots of new and amazing discoveries being made all over the place. When we were kids, we wouldn't have believed the existence of these mountain creatures. So anyway, Alonso's convinced, and he says, okay, I will stand to and feed. Now this has to be some really elaborate, just sumptuous, mouth-watering banquet that's set up before them. They're hungry, they haven't had a proper meal in a good while, they're tired, so you can imagine their stomachs are growling. They're just ready to dig in. This is going to be the best food ever. And as they are gathering around the table, we hear more lightning. Okay, this should remind you of the beginning of the play. The Tempest is ushered in with the sounds of lightning and thunder. And Ariel, like a harpy, clasps his wings upon the table, and with a quaint device, the banquet vanishes. Okay, first we gotta clarify what a harpy is. There's an image of a harpy. It's part eagle, part woman, meant to be scary, a little bit on the grotesque side. Okay, and this is gonna scare the pants off of Alonso and his party. And Ariel then proceeds to read them the right act, so to speak. Okay, around line 67 or so, Ariel says, you are three men of sin, whom destiny, that hath to instrument this lower world, and what is in it, the never surfeited sea, hath caused to belch up you, and on this island where man doth not inhabit it, you mongst men being most unfit to live, I have made you mad, and even with such like valor men hang and drown their proper selves. So Ariel is saying, I have control over your mind, I'm making you crazy. Your fates have caused you to end up here under my control. The sea has spit you out upon the island. You fools! I and my fellows are ministers of fate. The elements, of whom your swords are tempered, may as well wound the loud winds, or the bemocked at stabs kill the still closing waters as diminish one dow that's in my plume. So basically, I'll read further. My fellow ministers are like invulnerable. You could not hurt. Your swords are now too massy for your strengths and will not be uplifted. So you can see that maybe they're trying to attack the spirits, but because they're under this spell, they're really incapable of doing so, and the swords feel too massy. Okay, they have too much mass. They're too heavy. They're unable to be lifted up. So if they were acting this out, you would see these people trying to draw their swords, but they're being like too heavy for them to lift up. Here Ariel brings up the past grudge of Prospero, saying, but remember, for that's my business to you, to remind you of what you have done and what you're now being punished for, that you three from Milan did supplant good Prospero, exposed unto the sea, which hath requited him and his innocent child, for which foul deed the powers delaying not forgetting, have incensed the seas and shores, yea, all the creatures against your peace. Thee of thy son Alonso they have bereft. So the fates have decided to take your son, and do pronounce by me lingering perdition worse than any death can be at once, shall step by step attend you and your ways, whose wrath to guard you from, which here in the most desolate isle else falls upon your heads, is nothing but heart sorrow and a clear life ensuing. So Ariel's saying, you guys are toast. I've got you in my clutches, and you are going to suffer punishment for your foul deed that nature has not forgotten about. And that's why Ferdinand has been taken away from you. And then Ariel vanishes. Okay, and the audience knows Prospero is watching this, but Alonso and Sebastian, Antonio, Gonzalo, they've forgotten. They haven't seen Prospero in forever. They have no idea that Prospero could be behind this. It hasn't even crossed their mind. So it's going to be a huge surprise for them coming up when they do see Prospero. Now Prospero is kind of tickled now that everything's working out just as he's planned. There's a little hitch with the Caliban group, but Ariel's sort of taking care of them by leading them astray with that hypnotizing music. Prospero says, and these mine enemies are all knit up in their distractions, as in they're kind of hypnotized, mesmerized by Ariel's work, and they are now in my power. And in these fits I leave them while I visit young Ferdinand, whom they suppose is drowned, and his and mine loved darling. Okay, so his and mine loved darling means Miranda. He's going to go check on them, and he's got Alonso and friends right where he wants them. Alonso delivers this speech. It's almost like him about to give up and throw himself in the water. Oh, it is monstrous, monstrous, methought the billows spoke and told me of it. The winds did sing it to me, and the thunder, that deep and dreadful organ pipe, pronounced the name of Prosper. It did base my trespass. Therefore, my son, I the ooze is bedded, and I'll seek him deeper than e'er plummet sounded, and with him there lie mudded. So he's saying it's my fault Ferdinand has been taken and killed. It's because of my sins. This has been pronounced by that harpy who we know to be Ariel, and he's going to throw himself in the ocean to be drowned along with Ferdinand. Sebastian and Antonio get their swords going, and they just try to fight off these shapes that are still sort of hovering around. Gonzalo says to everybody else, these three people are going crazy. They're great guilt, like poison given to work a great time after. Now gins to bite the spirits. I do beseech you that are of suppler joints, follow them swiftly and hinder them from what this ecstasy may now provoke them to. So don't let Sebastian and Antonio get lost or do something crazy, and go save the king Alonso from throwing himself into the water. Again, Gonzalo is just on top of it, and he cares equally almost for Sebastian and Antonio, even though they don't probably deserve it. So this sets up Act 4, and so we'll pick up next time with Act 4, Scene 1.